Guys, welcome to the podcast. This is going to be a super fun episode with Andy Mill and his son Nicky. And was able to go up and spend some time with them at their home in Aspen, Colorado. And we just had a ball. We were out casting fly rods out in the grass and in the yard and chatting. And he gave me a tour of the house and just have an unbelievable view of the Aspen ski area, Aspen Highlands, Buttermilk, and Snowmass. Just beautiful views there of the Maroon Bells mountains out of their windows. A little background on Andy Mill. He was born in Fort Collins, and in the early years he moved with his family to Laramie, Wyoming before relocating to Aspen, Colorado in the early 60s. Andy was an accomplished junior racer and made the U.S. ski team in 1971 and 74. Andy competed at the World Championships in Switzerland, and for the next 7 years, when not injured, he was America's top downhill racer. In the mid-70s, Andy was nicknamed the Wild Hund, which means the wild dog by Europeans, for his gritty style and appearance. Andy's finest hour was probably in the 1976 Winter Olympics in Innsbruck, Austria, where he placed sixth in the downhill, which you're going to hear a story about this, which was won dramatically by Franz Klammer of Austria. Mill's finish was the best by any American in men's downhill in 24 years. Following that Olympics in 1976, Andy Mill won the downhill at the U.S. Alpine Championships. Two years later, he competed in the 1978 World Championships in Garmisch, West Germany, and the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid, where he was 16th in the downhill. His racing career ended in January 1981 after a serious crash in a train run in Switzerland. In 1988, Andy was presented with the U.S. Olympic Spirit Award in recognition for overcoming adversity in the 1976 Olympic Games, where he placed sixth in the downhill, even though injured. His lower right leg was so badly bruised from training injury that he could not stand without pain the day before the race. In order to compete, he froze his leg in the snow minutes before entering the starting gate. After retiring from ski racing in 1981, Mill has worked as a ski racing commentator with ESPN, NBC, ABC, and CBS. He has a syndicated show in major ski areas in the U.S. entitled Ski with Andy Mill, which he hosts, writes, and produces. After his ski racing career concluded, Andy Mill found another passion, tarpon fishing. A lifelong fisherman, he brought a similar level of dedication and perfection to fishing. Although admittedly he struggled for quite a few years, he eventually mastered the art of tarpon fishing and went on to become the only second angler to win 5 Gold Cup tarpon tournaments and be a Triple Crown winner in the tarpon fishing, Gold Cup, Holly, and Golden Fly. Mill has also hosted an outdoor show on the Outdoor Life Network, as well as fished for a number of fish including marlin, sailfish, bonefish, permit, and others. On July 30th, 1988, in Boca Raton, Florida, Andy Mill married tennis star Chris Evert, whom he had met 19 months earlier at a New Year's Eve party at the Hotel Jerome in Aspen. After 18 years of marriage and 3 sons, they later divorced in 2006. In this episode, you're going to get to hear me discuss all about ski racing and fly fishing and bow hunting elk with Andy and his son Nicky. I was very privileged to be able to go up and spend some time with these guys, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this episode, so I look forward to bringing it to you. Before we get to the episode, I just want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, the gear shop. Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, is the optics manager there. If you have any optical needs at all, make sure to get a hold of Cody at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. You can also send him an email at optics@gohunt.com. I also want to remind you that GoHunt Insider, there's a 30-day free trial going on right now. You can have full access, and just like you're a member of the Insider, for free, go to gohunt.com/jscott, follow the prompts. You'll be able to sign up for free and get a 30-day free trial. I want to thank them for their sponsorship. I also want to thank Kuiu. That's Kuiu Ultralight Hunting. I encourage you to go to the website kuiu.com to find out more about Kuiu. I also want to thank PhoneScope. Use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount there at phonescope.com. That's the device that I use on my iPhone X to do all my digiscoping. get all my videos and take the long-range photos. And I also want to thank onxmaps.com. If you go to onxmaps.com, use the JScott19 promo code, you're going to get a 20% discount. Guys, let's get right to this episode. I appreciate you guys supporting this podcast. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I am here at the home of Andy Mill and Nicky Mill, and we're in Aspen, Colorado. We've been out in the driveway doing some casting out in the grass and getting some tips from the casting master. And it's great to come up here. It's kind of funny how it's taken a couple years. I've wanted to have you, Andy, on my podcast, and Nicky, you reached out about a month ago and said, hey, Dad and I are starting a podcast. We want to have you up to the house. And I said, that's kind of funny you say that, because I've wanted to have a conversation with your dad on my podcast for a long time. So here we are. Awesome stuff. Andy Mill, good to have you.
Well, thank you, and welcome up to the house.
Yeah, for sure. Nicky, good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. It was perfect timing, when I reached out, because it was like minds think alike. So
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Unbelievable up here. We've got views, and the house here that we're at, we are looking across at Aspen Mountain, Aspen Highlands. You've also got Snowmass off in the distance. You've got Buttermilk. You've got Pyramid Peak. Basically have the Maroon Bells right out your front window. Just an amazing place. Andy, how long have you been here in this valley?
Oh, God. Well, since 1960, my family moved here. I started fourth grade, graduated from high school in 1971, and right after that, my parents moved to Denver, and I stayed. It's been my home from the first day we drove into town, and I'll always call it home. I'll always have a place here, and I very much doubt I'll ever leave this house. It's just so unbelievable. It's magical, as you can see.
It is. The view is just spectacular, and it's kind of a cloudy day, and to be able to see those kind of storms rolling in off the mountains is amazing. And I'm sure ski season, seeing it snow and such, although you're probably down in Florida as soon as the snow starts to fly.
Yeah, once it gets a little nasty in October, I'm ready to get out of here. I've scraped enough windows, and interestingly enough, after all these injuries I've had being a professional skier and all the other things I've got hurt doing, it's not so easy in the winter when it's cold and nasty.
The bones ache a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not like I really look forward to going skiing anymore. We were speaking earlier in the kitchen. Having done it for a living for a long time, it's like practicing shooting your bow without a target. Right? It feels good. You see the arrow go through the air. I can feel an arc turn, but without a clock involved, it's like, unless it's really pretty and sunny in March, you're not going to find me out there.
And I want to dive into kind of the early years of you growing up here in Aspen and some of your ski racing and what have you. You're also a multiple world champion tarpon fisherman, and kind of want to talk about the transition from, just being totally focused on skiing, although you told me up there in the kitchen that, you've fished ever since you were a little kid. Kind of want to talk about that. And then Nicky, I want to talk about with growing up with your dad having such a passion for skiing and such a passion for the outdoors, kind of how that's had an impact on you. It was so cool out there in the grass, to get some casting lessons and some tips from you both on casting, and then have Andy hand the rod over to you, Nicky, and just look like a dream out there casting, showing that underhand cast and what have you. Just cool, I'm sure, to grow up having a dad that really has passion for what he does.
Oh yeah, I couldn't ask for a better father figure. He's my best friend. He's a mentor. He's everything.
That's
I
awesome.
spend more time with him than anyone else in the world, and we love to do the same things: elk hunt, tarpon fish, trout fish, hike, mountain bike, everything, golf, everything. So he's my best friend, and I love him dearly.
Yeah, I'm gonna cry.
That's awesome. It's just so cool to be sitting here with you guys. We are sitting in, this is kind of a guy's room. I like it. We've got, treadmills, and we've got some weights, and we got dart boards, and you see we're You've Robin Hooded some arrows up here. We've of course got a bunch of fly rods and
Dead elk.
And you already showed me some of the house, some of the bulls that you guys have been together, and some that you've shot, Andy. You both really like archery elk hunting. My question would be for you, Andy, when you started out as a kid, when did the passion for hunting come, or did it come later?
It came much later. I would say growing up here in Aspen, it was, on a daily basis, you could do so many different things in the summer. And shooting a 22 and the ground squirrels were a huge passion. I'd get a box of 100 shells, and I'd go whack a bunch of gophers, and I'd go to the river and whack a bunch of fish. So, whether you were hunting for gophers or hunting for fish, it was in my DNA. Mm-hmm. I killed an elk with a rifle, but that didn't do much. But once I saw the whole bugling, talking to the animal aspect, that really flipped my light switch. And very similar to fishing for big tarpon, a lot of people don't realize that you do speak to fish. I can talk to that tarpon. Nicky can tell that tarpon to come eat this bug if you know what you're doing. The only difference between a tarpon and a big elk is an elk is a mammal and it's screaming at you. But it's the same thing. When you throw that fly out there and you start talking to the fish, he's coming, and when he gets cross-eyed, he's going to bite your bug. And when you hear that animal screaming back at you in the woods, as you know, that's a whole
magical.
It takes that whole hunting plane to a different level. Yeah. And of all the things that I've done, and I hate to short shoot or short side my ski career, because skiing at 100 miles an hour for a living, I kind of poo-poo that. But if I take a closer look at it, if you can imagine sliding down the side of a mountain, try to make turns around the frozen back edge of a basketball going 80 miles an hour. That's what my life was like for a long time. But my life has been so removed now from that, because I'm closing in on 70. It's like I just take that for granted. But at the time, it was huge. But now my time over the last number of years was catching big tarpon, and when I got into tournament fishing, that brought on a whole different level of excitement, because I had a chance to do something well again on the backside of being a ski racer. Mm-hmm. But when I started hunting bull elk, that was really so exciting. It's much more exciting to me than catching a big 150-pound tarpon. Not necessarily because I've done it so much and I've caught a lot of big fish. It's just because it is a mammal that is speaking with you, and you're trying to kill it with a sharp stick and 20 yards.
And they're big.
They're big.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, everything else is below archery elk hunting for me.
Do you think, though, like what you were saying, Andy, do you think, Nicky, that you've been exposed to it too much, that elk is almost held up on a pedestal up here because you have seen tarpon fishing at the highest level, and it's kind of like I don't want to belittle it, but been there, done that?
Maybe a little bit, but here too is the effort and the time and the miles and the nights spent, on the side of a hillside, and the effort put in to being successful in the woods elk hunting is just so much greater than tarpon fishing. I mean, on a great day of tarpon fishing, you can hook 10 and catch 5.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about harvesting one bull a year.
Right.
With the OTC tags.
If you're really lucky.
If you're really lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You said something that made me think of a question, but I kind of want to dive into the early days of your ski racing to try and dig in a little bit and see what makes you, whether it be skiing, whether it be tarpon fishing, or chasing bull elk. What was it like growing up being a ski racing kid?
I think for the most part I was a pain in the ass. I think it drove my parents crazy. It drove my friends crazy, because you are so connected to speed. I was hyper, and I didn't have the attention span to stay in school. I was always looking out of the window, and on my side sheets of my work papers, I was always drawing slalom courses and racing, turns with my pencil down the page until I could get out of school at 3. I learned how to tie flies at a young age, and the river really captured, my being, as did baseball and football. But growing up in Aspen, I was just a kind of a little wild child, and it was great because Aspen was such a great town to grow up in. For the most part, it's quite benign, especially back, in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew each other. The only paved street in town was Main Street. So it was a very small little cow town.
So it was nothing like what it is now.
Nothing. And so for me, my connection to all this was I just liked being outside. And I liked catching fish. And then I liked killing stuff. And, I liked being a part of what was going on, whether it be a part of the football team, the baseball team, the ski team.
So did you play all the sports?
I did. But I would say the difference that I had was I took it really personal.
How so?
In the fact that I wasn't just there to be a part of the team. I wanted, I wanted to be a pitcher. I was a pitcher. I played third base. So the pitcher controls the game. I wanted to go into the water and read that water and catch the fish. I wanted to be the lead player of my life. And when I started doing the ski thing, I wasn't just out there trying to have a good time. I was trying to win.
Be the fastest.
I wanted to be the fastest.
Yeah.
And I think that that doesn't make me anything better or worse. It's just that's the way I was. And what in the long term, I've been very fortunate to be able to do a lot of different things. But I think the fishing really gave me a second chance to do something well, because as a skier, once I started making skiing the national circuit and then racing in Europe and making the Olympic team and getting hurt, I didn't win at the level I wanted to. Yeah, I did do well. I won the national championships. I was the number 1 ranked American. I skied in 2 world championships. I got 6th in the Olympics, but I didn't win. In retrospect, I know I could have probably been a whole lot better for a lot of different reasons. So when I got into fishing and I had great mentors, I didn't really have a great mentor. And I don't want to place blame on anybody else for my lack of success. But I wasn't smart enough to really understand and know how to get it on my own. But in fishing, I had great mentors. I came to the saltwater game being able to fish. I had good eyes. I had good balance. I was an athlete. I could stand on a boat in the ocean when it was rocking and it was rough. And I had the determination to win, which I don't think a lot of guys bring to that game. They're not great world-class athletes. And I think that I had really good vision and great mentors. And so when I started tarpon fishing and tournament fishing, I was possessed. I was absolutely, I think I spent 10 years without sleep. I was so possessed in winning. And that was probably a part of my DNA when I was a younger kid growing up here in Aspen wanting to win. But I never got to that place where I could dominate until I became a fisherman. That was a little long-winded, sorry.
No, I like that. So the intensity is what I hear. You're an intense person, and whatever you do 110%. When was the first time with all of that in your ski racing when you went down a hill and you said, I'm good at this?
Probably the first 10 feet I slid on a pair of skis.
So as soon it happened right away for you.
Yeah, and was it or you're down. It's interesting in that my ex-wife, Nikki's mom, Chris Everett, the tennis player,
one of the best ever.
Ever. Yep. I took her skiing for the first time, and she did not like the sensations of sliding. So she grew up in a very conservative family. You can take a look at how she played tennis. She was a baseline player. She was not that serve and volley or
control.
She was controlled,
right.
But she was the best at it.
Yep.
But in skiing, I asked her, she would slide 6 inches and stab the snow to stop. She didn't like sliding. I said, well, if you don't like to feel the wind in your face and that sensation of sliding, you're not going to ski.
For you.
And she was still, playing tennis at the time, so she didn't want to get hurt. But if you're like Nicky, I could do anything with him, and he's going to gravitate to it. So he raced motorcycles, and he wanted to see big air. He wanted to catch big fish. He's like a mini-me. I mean, the other 2 sons that I have, they're great athletes, and like the old adage, and I like to use it, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But Nicky has been drinking this water that has been exuded from my life since day one.
Mini-me, I like that. Nicky, speaking about that, growing up with parents that are phenomenal athletes and, famous people, growing up and when did you realize that you were also a great athlete yourself? Was there ever a point where you're like, I can do some of this stuff. This is awesome.
Probably from a young age. I mean, from a really young age, we were racing motocross and playing tennis, playing soccer, and I kind of was. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I was up there with some of the best that I was competing with.
Sure.
And so, at a young age, I really didn't know any better. They just kind of threw me in the ropes, and I just tried my best. And
But you liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. I loved it. I really loved motocross riding. I thought that taught me a lot, and I mean, going to the track every Thursday and Friday nights as a family, it was a great family bonding experience, as well as competition and racing in general. So, I thought motocross racing was very beneficial in my younger years.
And was it one of those things that, since motocross racing, was that kind of your sport? In other words, having your mom be a tennis player, dad be a skier and a fisherman, did you feel like, man, I can just light my hair on fire and ride this thing as fast as it'll go, and this is kind of my deal?
No.
Not at all?
No, not at all. It was just sort of what my brothers and I did. We love to go fast, and we love to, be competitive with each other and be competitive with other people, but that wasn't my passion. It really wasn't, and it's just something that I love to do. I don't know if I would have recognized if I had a passion back then. I mean,
at that age.
Yeah, at that age, I was doing so many different things and being introduced to so many different sports that I just kind of did them. I would say once my father got me into fishing, that's when I realized, okay, I can do this the rest of my life.
That's cool.
This is my passion.
I think that's one thing about fishing too, from a physical standpoint, is fishing is one of those things that you can do for a long period of time. It's for longevity wise, you can do it a long time, which is cool.
It's really cool, and we were speaking out on the lawn about my passions for trout fishing, which are still quite vivid. But my passion is as much hanging out and watching him fish.
That's what you were saying.
And watching the river marinate. Mm-hmm. You get there early before the hatch starts to begin, and I love to sit on the bank and just listen to the water, and watch the water, and watch the timing of the river and the timing of the bugs. And when it gets right, you step in there and you start having some fun.
Watch it come alive.
Yeah, but I would say until recently I was never that guy. I was the guy that would want to get there early and catch as many as I could.
Right.
And then I became kind of like the big fish guy. And that's really kind of a story in the life of a fisherman. Mm-hmm. The 3 stages. When you first get in, you would just want to catch more than everybody.
Right.
Then you want to catch the biggest, and then you just want to be there. I'm kind of at that 3rd stage there now, where I want to go look for a big fish, and I want to catch them on dry flies or whatever, and I want to catch a lot of fish. But more importantly, I just want to go hang out with him and be on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. You asked me, I think we after we fished yesterday, you said, when you're fishing with all those people in the river in the frying pan, are you competitive with other people, or do you want to catch every fish right in front of them? I said, hell yeah.
And he does. He does.
Oh yeah, of course. And you're not. You were that way, I'm sure, but you're not that way anymore.
I still feel that once in a while, but then I fight the urge, and when I start to get all ramped up and get frustrated, I think to myself, it's not worth it.
Right.
I can enjoy so much more of this day by not being aggravated.
Do you think there was a time when you couldn't go to the river and kind of just let everything unfold and then just wait till the hatch started going, wait till a few fish start rising? Were you the type of guy that went to the river, first head you saw, you were over there trying to pound them on the head?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I skied at 100. I was trying to fish at 100.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story is I got hurt. It was in 81. It was the year after the Olympics. Or the year after the Olympics, I got hurt and I tweaked my knee and I had to come back to South Lake Tahoe, and Dr. Stedman did a microfracture on my knee, and then I was going to return to Europe and race, which I did, but I was in the hospital. He just operated on my knee, and I had some fly fishing stuff out there that I left at a friend's house, so I get he just operated on me. I get back from the recovery room, and I got out of bed, and I went to the bathroom, and I'm stomping on my leg. I had no pain. I go, wow, Steady's really got this down, So I just left the hospital. I didn't even check out. I just left the hospital, got in my car, went and got my fishing rod, and went to the river. And I was down there fishing.
Not good.
And about an hour later, my leg, oh my God, my leg started hurting. Now, what do you do? Go check back into the hospital and ring the buzzer for another shot of morphine, And I was staying with Dr. Stedman when I got there, and so I just went to his house, and he got back, from operating that evening. He goes, "What are you doing here?"
Unreal.
But I was a crazy fisherman, and I'd get there and fish as early as I could to as late as I could, and just rack up the numbers.
You grew up skiing on this mountain, going 100 miles an hour as fast as you could go. The equipment that the guys are skiing on now compared to what you were skiing on, talk a little bit about that.
Well, the skis we were skiing on, downhill skis, there were 220 centimeters, so in very little side cut. So they were meant to go straight. So turning on the icy courses in Europe with those skis it was difficult to really carry the speed through the full radius of a turn. But if you look at the power of the guys now, so a downhill ski might be like a 218. The side cut is so radical in the G forces that it's like 5 Gs they build in the apex of a corner now. And what they can do on solid ice is just absolutely amazing. I mean, you take that pane of glass right there and make it 3,000 feet long. That's what they're skiing down.
Yeah.
And the ski does not slip. That's the power that these guys have in their legs to hold that edge going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour around a bend of solid ice. To me, I'm fascinated by these guys. And Michaela Schifrin from Vail and what she's done and the success that she's had, you don't see athletes like this come around very often.
I played golf in high school and in college, and I also see the correlation. That's probably the sport that I'm closest to, and the athletes these days and the strength that they have and how far they hit the ball is also amazing. I'm sure when you look at, the skiing stuff, I'm sure when your mom looks at some of the tennis stuff, she just is blown away at the strength and the power and the skill. I still think, you take, Jack Nicklaus and give him the equipment today, and he's going to be a world beater. You take someone like yourself, you
gravitate to that new generation.
Sure,
absolutely.
You gravitate to the new generation, but what I'm saying is the older school guys, I still believe Jack Nicklaus, if you give him Tiger's equipment, would be unbelievable. Probably
today.
I think he'd be unbelievable.
He's 80. I doubt it.
You get what I'm saying? No, I mean, if he could use equipment that they're using today.
Well, look,
in his prime.
Let's take a look at what they did and the scores they shot. They didn't hit the ball quite as far as they do today. I mean, nothing, compared because of the shafts and the ball speed that comes off that, the old persimmon head. But if you take a look at some of the guys that are on the seniors tour, that's a pretty close assessment here. Mm-hmm. And here you had Watson almost winning the British Open at the age of 60 just a few years ago.
Oh man, I wanted that so bad.
So you're so right in that aspect.
Yeah. So the Olympics, you were one of the best in the U.S. You won the national championship, and you go into the Olympics. You were hurt. Talk about that from a standpoint of wanting it so bad, but your body was hurt. And not that other people didn't have to deal with injuries as well.
Sure.
But talk about how you wanted it so bad up here, but did you know that, it just...
Well, what happened was I had 2 knee operations before the Olympics of 76 that summer. So that whole year I was basically skiing on one leg. And I like to preface this story in the fact that, I got 6th in that Olympics on a leg that I couldn't walk on. But I want to preface this by saying I don't think I would have finished that high or done that well had I not gotten hurt. Like the old adage is be careful of an injured athlete, mm-hmm. because now they focus that much harder. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was There was no snow in 76, so they had to bring all the snow in off the Brenner Pass with helicopters. So it was basically a ribbon of snow from start to finish. And then the Austrian army, they sprayed it with water and they side slipped it and made it a ribbon of ice. So we had a small little rope tow at the top of the lift, maybe 150 yards long, and that's all you had to warm up skiing-wise because there was no snow in the mountain. And near the bottom of the finish, or near the bottom of the downhill, there's a big off-camber left-hand turn that was solid ice. In the very first training run, there were like 4 of us that crashed, into the fencing on that corner, and I had such a bad boot top injury, I could not walk. I couldn't put a ski boot on. But I had gotten 5th in the pre-Olympics, so I knew the course well. And I was on crutches, and I thought, well, heck, I can go up on one ski and watch training because I knew the course. But you needed to have 3 runs to race for some crazy reason. So I watched a few of the runs 2 days in a row, and I'd go up with one ski and one ski boot and an after ski boot. I'd side slip and watch everybody train. And then the second to the last training run, I went out of the starting gate on one ski and stopped. So I haven't seen the finish gate yet. And so for the last training run in the Olympic Village that night, I looked across and I saw a cardboard box that our uniforms came in, and I cut a piece of cardboard off this box, and it was like a jet stick. It was a long, narrow piece of cardboard, and I doubled it and put a piece of adhesive tape around it and stuck it into my ski boot. And I thought, wow, if I sit back, this might help distribute the pressure at the back of my ski boot. And I told the coaches, I said, if I can't get to the finish gate in the last training run, I'm out. And so the next day I went to the starting gate. I knew I couldn't get an injection because I wouldn't be able to lift my toes. So I froze my leg. I took my sock off and buried my leg in the snow and froze it to the point that I couldn't feel it. And then I just put the cardboard strip into my ski boot, buckled up, and took off. And I remember about halfway down, my legs just started killing me, but I thought, God, it's so steep and fast, I don't know if I can stop. So I thought, shoot, just try to ski faster, to take my mind off my injured leg. And I was 9th in the last training run, and the opening ceremonies were that afternoon. So I was back in the race. And the next day, I just froze my leg that much longer and missed a bronze medal by 0.3 of a second.
Man.
So it was a real highlight of my career because, to look back on a career and say you skied, you're an Olympian, that says a lot. Mm-hmm. Because remember, there are only 4 athletes from this country that represent this country in the Olympics.
Correct.
So it's a small group of guys that can qualify for the Olympics.
It's amazing. And,
but to finish 6th in the Olympics, I mean, some people know I finished 6th, but more people know, I think, that I was a good skier, and quite a few people know I'm probably a better fisherman.
How was that to transition from being known as a skier to being known as a fisherman?
I love it. I do. I mean, Nicky can attest to this. I mean, and he's well known too because he's finished in the top 3 in all the big tournaments.
I'm nobody compared to you.
Yeah, no, but you're a great fisherman. I'll put you up against anybody. I mean, to watch this guy fish is really a sight to be seen.
Yeah, just watching him cast. You wanted to hand him the rod. He's like, no, it's okay. Yeah. And then he picked it up. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah, no, he's great. But to be, look, I'm very fortunate. I had great mentors in the fishing game. I say we because as a fisherman, fly fisherman on the flats, you can't do that without a great guide. You're only 50% of the equation. Yeah.
Nicky, when you told the story, your dad, and you were talking out on the lawn, we were talking about your first tarpon and catching, and you guys just went nuts and went crazy. Was it a deal that once you caught that fish, the spark was there? And
I was hooked.
Hooked.
From that moment on, I was hooked, yeah. We were in the backcountry, and he got into this spot where they were just blooping and laying and just all happy fish. And, I could throw probably 40, 50 feet, but it would land in a pile, and there'd be slack everywhere. And my dad would always say, Nicky, you got to stop that rod tip. And he would get mad. I mean, Listen, I love my dad, but
He would yell at you?
That's an understatement. You would make me cry when I was a kid.
I used to tell him, you want to learn fast or you want to learn slow?
Make me cry. You were brutal, but
he made you the fisherman.
He did. Yeah, credit to him, he did. He could have been a little nicer sometimes. But, I'm just joking. No, he was good. But that first tarpon, I casted like 40, 50 feet right in the middle of a ball of fish, and there was slack everywhere. And my dad was just saying, strip it, strip, 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 strip. And I just kept stripping. I didn't know what to expect. I've never caught a tarpon before, and all you see is this silver knife underwater, and I got tight. And he came out of the water, and my dad just started yelling as loud as he could. And I started yelling.
We still yell.
Yeah, we still yell, exactly. And, it was about a 70-pounder, and, I was hooked. That moment it changed my life. It did.
That's awesome. So tell me about how you guys, in the spring, you're telling me that February, March, April, May, but March and April, right, is kind of the hot time. And forgive me, anybody listening, I'm not a saltwater fisherman. I'd love to get into it, but I've never done it. Tell me kind of how your routine is in the springtime when it's really going.
So in the early spring, starting in February when the weather gets right and the water temperature gets right, you can fish for laid up tarpon in the backcountry. February, March, but the real migration, the tarpon migration that everyone talks about in the Keys and the west coast of Florida, that really kicks off in April, May, June. And that's when you see these strings coming down the beach, and it's so visual. That's the pinnacle of tarpon fishing, I think, is when you're waiting in this spot, and all of a sudden you look up 100 yards away, and here comes a wolf pack of big old 100-pound fish coming right at your boat, and you're shaking.
I'll bet.
You're shaking. And so that normally starts around the first week in April, and it'll go till like the first week in July, to be honest. And my dad has rented a house in the Lower Keys the month of April and May for the last 10 years.
Once I got out of tournament fishing, it was just you and I. We were always renting that house, so it was probably 10 years.
Yeah, probably for the last 10 years.
At least 10 years, yeah.
And
so we just go down and fish every day for 5 weeks.
So it's just you and a guide too?
No, just Nicky and I.
Just two-man deal.
Just us.
And he's a great polar, so I can fish, he can fish, and it's just, I love that. And I've got certain sponsors that'll come down and fish with me periodically, but for the most part, it's just the two of us.
That is awesome.
And no one else is allowed.
That is awesome.
I have people that call, and I'll tell you a funny story. Really, I tell people, no, I only fish with my son.
That's awesome.
And I'd like to fish with other people, but they can't get it done. Mm-hmm. It's like, so let me ask you, why would I push my boat for 10 hours a day for you, and you can't catch a fish, and you can't pull me? What's in it for me?
Yeah, well, I totally understand that.
Selfish, I don't want to sound like I'm selfish, but it's like you're working your butt off, and they can't get the fly 10 feet in front of them,
right,
out of the boat. And right. I've had people come down, really good friends, and I've learned I cannot do this. It's a waste of their time. It's too aggravating for everybody.
I get it.
Yeah.
But
it'd be like somebody take bow hunting, they can't pull the string back.
Yeah.
Same scenario.
I get it. And why, you said you're almost pushing 70. Why waste any second
right.
when you're pushing 70 when you're not going to be with your son?
Right.
To be with someone that can't make the cast and you only have so many casts left, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, time's precious.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah. You walked me up and showed me your house and everything, and I got to see in the room where there's just ski memorabilia and trophies, and you were telling about your fishing house and what have you, and just being around you guys literally for a couple hours now, never having met either one of you. I know you would trade everything in this house to have the time with your kid, and
Absolutely.
that's awesome. That is what it's all about. That's
I just feel so fortunate. I've got 3 kids. Obviously, I love all of them.
Sure.
But I've got this connection that is omnipresent across the board of my life, hunting and fishing and golf and just messing around in the woods.
It's beautiful.
He's like Nicky said, he's my best friend as well. But he can get this stuff done.
Yeah.
It's not like we're together because we just want to be together. We're together too because we are very successful at this. And to watch him catch these big fish and do well in the tournaments, and to call in an elk for him last year that he shot from 30 yards and watch him pile up, and just the two of us, it's like
And then I called one in for you, and you shot one this year.
But it's like,
last year.
What more could you ever beg for or pray for in life?
To have that bond.
And that connection. And not only, I'm not going to berate not being able to get it done, but two, we are very successful at this stuff, which drives that passion even more so. Because if you were to go into the woods, time in and time out for 20 days every year, 30 days, and you backpack in, 2-3 hours, and you don't get anything, at some point, you're going to get a little bit burned out and say, hey, why don't we try something else?
Right.
So when you're successful, that fire burns brighter, and it's gotten pretty big, that fire. The unfortunate thing is I'm getting older now, so I don't know if I can maintain that fire that much longer.
Sure, I get it. You guys talk about your love for archery elk hunting. Was there a time, that you guys can put a finger on in the last few years that really turned on to kind of being you guys' thing? Was there one particular hunt or something that lit that fire, or was it more the bond of that fishing and then let's do it on the hunting aspect as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the first tarpon I caught, I was hooked for life. The first time I saw a bull elk bugle in the woods, I was hooked for life. It was probably the first time we hunted with our mutual friend Josh over in Steamboat, and yeah, it's just the camaraderie coming back, to a stove, eating Mountain House, freeze-dried food, being wet and cold, and sleeping in a little sleeping bag, and dodging bears, and just the whole experience is it's incredible. I love it, and I would say just from to answer your question, from the first hunt, I was hooked. I
would say, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think hunting turned you into the man that you are.
Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Because it's so hard. I mean, we were going deep, backpacking.
Like having to gut it out type of stuff?
Really hard. I mean, we were going into the woods where you're backpacking and carrying a lot of weight for 3 hours, and we'd spend 6 days in there in the rain, and you're eating freeze-dried food, and you're freezing. You have no change of clothes. You're wringing your socks out in the morning, and every day you're out there in the woods from dark to dark, and you're dying in a lot of ways. It is miserable. It's like, and there are no animals except for maybe a couple here and a couple there. But you're not going to be able to endure that unless you become a man. Children can't do that.
That's true. How much of the hunting aspect that you guys are so drawn to, how much of it is the strategy and the tactics and trying to figure it out, and the physical aspect of hiking, and what to you is the thing that makes it the draw for you, Nicky?
Calling them in.
So the tactical aspect of getting close, calling, having them react, having them respond, and come to the goal.
Communication, just like my dad was saying about tarpon fishing, about communicating with the animal via the fly. As you know, it's the communication with the mouth reed or the bugle. That's
everything.
That's everything.
To me too.
So without that aspect, elk hunting wouldn't be elk hunting, would it?
No.
I mean, you don't want to go tarpon fishing and not see a tarpon.
Right.
And dredge.
Right.
And hope to get tight.
Blank cast. There's so many scenarios where you can paint this ugly picture as to why you don't want to do it again. But I think when you have that animal talking to you and screaming at you because of what you just said,
right,
that connection will make everything doable. You're going to hike to the top of Everest and jump off of cliffs to hear that animal scream again.
Yeah, for sure. Around here in the Aspen area, the elk hunting, it can be dang tough. I mean, it's not easy around here. Talk about that a little bit.
I haven't had a shot in 4 years.
Yeah, and so here's this huge passion you have, and you haven't had a shot in 4 years, but you're still.
Thank God he's killed him. He's killed him.
Lucky. But
yeah, Go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say the terrain around
you've been
here.
killing them, so it's easy for you to talk about.
No, but the terrain around Aspen is gnarly. It's hard. It's steep, and we don't have the like I was telling you, Jay. We don't have the herd that Western Colorado does, or Steamboat or Meeker. And there's just little nooks and crannies where you can find them, and they get pushed around because there's a lot of pressure around here. And if you're not persistent and you're not in the woods all the time, it's very hard. I mean, yeah, like you said, you haven't got a shot in 4 years. And how many miles did you hike last year?
Oh God! And I had my back fused a year and a half ago, so it's not that easy anymore. On a replaced knee, and I got a lot of arthritis, so it's like it's better be cool, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. So that's a great testament to elk hunting. It's way cool.
And we had a mutual friend who was a compound archery guy, and then went to traditional, and he was asking us, well, why don't you go to traditional? You guys love fly fishing, and you love the traditional aspect of being in nature and whatnot. And we were saying, well, it's so hard where we are.
Yeah.
And if we can get to 30, 40, 50 yards of a bull, or just an elk in general,
You want to be able to kill them.
we want to capitalize on
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for a 10, 20-yard shot with a traditional bow,
Right.
because it's so hard around
You
here.
might not get that.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny because Flip Pallet is a big,
that's
traditional archer, and Flip was saying you're not going to become an archer until you shoot, traditional. And I wanted, I didn't tell him this, but it's like, okay, Flip, you come hunt where we hunt. You pull that stick back and see how many animals you're going to kill.
Well, and I think it's one thing if you've killed 30 or 40 bulls and,
Right.
you've killed them, and it's like, okay, now maybe you graduate to where you're at with the fishing, where you just want to watch him. There may
Right.
be a time when you just want to watch him shoot all the bulls,
Look.
and you won't pull your bow back at all.
Look, if I hunted with you on your ranch, I'd be a longbow guy tomorrow.
Yeah, you'd be done in an hour.
Yeah. That's I would hunt with you.
And that was one more question I was going to ask you is there any part of you guys that have wanted to reach out and hunt some of the other places other than the OTC, or is it the grind and the toughness that
I'm over that grind stuff.
So yes, you want to.
Yeah, you know what? I want to be in animals. I don't mind grinding, but I'm getting a little tired of it because it really is hard. And last year, thank God, Nicky killed this great animal, which really, made that season, so awesome. I mean, sure, it's great anyway, but I like being in the animals. And so, like, to go hunt somewhere on somebody's ranch and maybe buy a landowner tag, I see nothing wrong with that.
Sure, just giving yourself more opportunity.
I want to be in the animals.
Right.
I want to see them and hear them.
Well, and I've had a lot of conversation with guys on calling elk and what have you, and one thing, I've been fortunate, I guided in Arizona for 20 years in the best state in the country for elk, the best units in the country for elk. I've hunted some of the reservations, the best place. So I've had tons of encounters and tons of practice calling. And, I think about some of you guys' hunting where you may only get a couple shots, at getting a chance to call a bull, 4 or 5 chances a season.
Right.
Where I might have 15 in a day.
Every day.
It's like if you were tarpon fishing and only got a shot once every 6 or 8 days, you might not be as good as if you've caught quite a bit of fish.
Right, for sure.
You'll never get good if you get a shot a day.
Right.
You know what? You're never going to get great at tarpon fishing only 5 days a year.
Right.
That's a great point.
You're not.
Right.
I promise you.
Right. No matter how good you are.
When I was tournament fishing, I was fishing 60, 70 days a year with the best guides on the water. And when a lot of the people that were in the tournaments were only fishing just a handful of days. Now, a lot of these anglers are fishing a lot. But two, it's like nobody's going to be as good of a caller as you are. Look at where you've been and what you've seen.
Well, I think going along with having good sounds, you have to know when to call and why not to call at certain times. And so there's a lot to go at it. Just like if you guys are casting at fish, you may hold and not even cast because you can't catch that fish.
The angle's wrong or something.
The angle's wrong, or the wind, or and I've never been, so I'm just kind of speculating, but I'm sure there's times when you're like, I'm not even going to fire. I'm going to wait.
Right.
And okay, now I'm going to, make my cast, and I know I can
Absolutely.
catch them. An efficient time. And that goes with, as many at-bats as you can get and know when to call and why to call, and then say, most of the time before I call a bull, I can give you a relative, percentage chance of how much chance that bull's coming in. A lot of times I can be like, that bull's coming in for sure as soon as I hear how he reacts to my call.
Right.
Whereas if you didn't have that at bat a lot, you don't know is he just bugling intensely or no, he's coming.
Right.
It's interesting how that plays out. So looking forward in this year for elk hunting, you guys going to do quite a bit this season?
Yeah, hopefully.
Every year it's daunting for me because I know it's gotten, a lot harder. And, hopefully, we're going to hunt around here. And at some point, we've got to figure out a game plan. And we're trying to take a look at some public land between some big ranches in the state where we can hypothetically maybe get in on two ways. We've got some electric bikes, which is not a bad idea. But maybe two get dropped off with horses and a sat phone. Because I want to be realistic with this. Nicky says, come on, we got this. I said, no, we don't have this. Look at what you're working with here. Let's go climb Pyramid Peak tomorrow. No, you don't have this. I'm not going to go climb Pyramid Peak tomorrow.
Although you did just do it,
I did it last year. Yeah, he dragged me up there, and I cried when I got to the top. I didn't think I was going to be able to get down.
I'm just trying to keep you young.
Yeah, or kill me, one of the two. But it's all good. But, yeah, no, we're going to be all in. I don't know what I can do with this, what I have to work with, but one way or the other, we are going to hunt hard. And we will kill something.
Yeah. Have you guys gotten into high country mule deer hunting or sheep hunting or goat hunting or anything like that?
I got into mule deer hunting last year, and I felt the juice of that.
What was it that was maybe different than elk that kind of got you going?
The glassing aspect. I love to glass. Every morning I glass with a cup of coffee outside, looking in the mountains. I just love it. And patterning them as well, finding their beds and their feeding areas and what slope they're going to hang out on. And it was fun because that was totally new to me last year. I've just been elk hunting, and I drew a deer tag last year and was successful and got a taste of it, and I loved it.
This was my 21st season. I just finished in January guiding Coues deer hunters in Mexico and hunting down there myself for Coues deer. And one of the things that I like so much about Coues deer, a lot of people say, oh, they're 100 pounds and, they're rack, a big one's this big. But the glassing aspect and the tactical aspect of observing and watching and figuring them out and where they go in, where they come out of the trees, and where they move and where they bed. That's what I've been addicted to in January, hunting them during the rut. And, to hear you talk about deer hunting and it kind of spurred some interest and passion in you, it's pretty cool. That's one thing I like about hunting and fishing is, we get to plan our gear, we get to plan our trips, we get to, we're outside shooting, we're outside. It's like an all year something you're thinking about. And I'm sure there's times in the spring when you're out there on the Tarpon water and it's dead and you're thinking about, hey, I might hike up to this basin and I might try and, see if the elk are up here. So it's kind of fun, and that's one thing I really enjoy about hunting and fishing is the tactical aspect of, and I'm sure, when you started out tarpon fishing, trying to figure it out and trying to put yourself in a position to succeed and be efficient.
Right.
Well, initially for as a fisherman, you have two aspects: there's the angling aspect and then the guiding aspect. And so forever I was the angler. So I was trying to fish well, and I was trying to figure out how to fight fish effectively, like we were speaking out on the lawn, and about how to pull on fish and how to catch a 100-pound fish quickly. And learning how, and I designed this technique where I can learn how to fight fish in my garage through weights and pulleys, etc. And then as a guide, that is a whole different bag of apples that is so complicated.
And we just started tapping into that.
Oh my God, that's so much harder than being the actual angler.
It's so
What
hard.
do you mean when you just started tapping into it? That intrigues me.
Because my dad's been fishing with guides for forever, and so just started tapping into it. Meaning the last 8 to 10 years, we're trying to do it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to find the edges and the current flow and the tides and the basins where they lay up and what edge they swim better on. And we're trying to think. Yeah, we're trying to think as a guide, and so.
But don't you think? I mean, that's now almost all of the fun of it.
It's
for
really
sure.
great. As you know, as a guide, you killed that animal for that client, and in fishing, again, I don't want to shortchange being a great angler because there's a lot to being an angler, but two, if you're a great guide, there's so much to know and about the edges and the tides change every day and they're not consistent, with the drop of flow. You can look at the difference, the daily difference. Mm-hmm. To me, that is where the magic takes place.
And what's very interesting is you can fish a great spot in the lower keys on a high tide, on a high falling tide, a high rise. You could fish the great spot on wrong tides and you'll never see a fish.
Right.
In that case, you'll think that spot is terrible.
Right.
You just got to figure out what tide to fish that spot
Probably
on.
kind of like you in the migration of elk and when and where they're going to be.
Well, yeah, and I mean, anything, like whatever you're hunting, I think that's what's so fun about hunting and fishing when you get to a certain level is you get to the stage where you just want to pound every head and catch, and then you get to a stage where you want to figure out, well, why is that trout rising now and he wasn't 30 minutes ago? Well, obviously, yeah, bugs are hatching, whatever's going on, but why is he taking emergers, or why, there's so much, and I'm sure with the saltwater gig, it's the same thing. There's so much to it. I mean, you could take me who've never been saltwater fly fishing, and you pull me out there, and I cast 25 feet away and throw this thing out there, and this fish eats, and you're like, that fish would not eat 99 out of 100 times, and he just ate this idiot's fly.
That happens.
And I catch a fish, and I get a picture, and I'm like, I'm a tarpon fisherman. And you're like, you are far from a tarpon fisherman. You made a horrible cast. I angled the boat just perfectly so they'd eat it. But I don't know that. You know it.
Right.
You get what I'm
It's just
saying?
like these guys that go to Vermejo and kill these monster elk, and they can't walk 2 miles without passing out.
Right. And that's the whole, like you were saying before, like nuance. It's like there's so much to it when you really get into
The recipe.
Yeah. And how you do it. And that's one thing I love is it's how the game is played.
Right.
How do you play the game? And everybody has their own level of this is the pure way to do it. And I'm one of those that I like all kinds of tactics, and I hate that some parts of the sport get, whether it be hunting or fishing, is, I don't like that guy, he fishes with spinners, right. Or I don't like that guy, he fishes with bait, or whatever. We all have our way and reasons why we do it.
Well, how do you feel about tournament calling on stage?
I think that tournament calling on stage is great for people to listen to, but
have you ever done that?
So I've judged 3 years in the World Championships, and my opinion is that a lot of the calls that people hear on stage will not work in the elk woods. I know people that are fantastic callers that would never make it on the stage, but I would take them every day of the week in the woods. So I'm fine with the tournament calling because I think it gets people into the sport and what have you. One of the things I think the differences is I think people would learn a lot more if they're not listening to some of that tournament calling, if they're listening to elk themselves, or they're, go out and get some experience with someone in the woods and how are you using that call. But, it's kind of like fly casting. A guy that is maybe a phenomenal tournament fly caster, he might not be able to go out and catch a tarpon. I don't know. I mean,
he would have a hard time unless we told him exactly where to put the fly and how to strip it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So at least he could get the fly there.
Yeah,
initially.
So I think a lot of the tournament calling, with a lot of the bugling and a lot of the fancy chuckling and all the different things that you hear, I think you go do that on heavily pressured elk, they're going to clam up and go away.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of cow calling as opposed to bugling, where, you know, most of the tournament callers I think are phenomenal buglers, but they're really weak in the cow calling. There's only a handful of people that I would say are really good cow callers. They might argue with me and say, hey, wherever I hunt, bugling is the only thing that works. So, I mean...
Is that true, though?
I think if you ask me, in my experience, if I never bugled again, I would call in just as many elk. That's my personal opinion. I've got friends that's all they'll do is bugle.
My contention is, tell me if I'm wrong, that most bulls would like to have a girlfriend, but not all bulls want to fight.
Right, and it's kind of like humans. I mean, there's fighters and there's lovers, but I found more than not, most bulls want to come to a cow call rather than a bugle to fight. Yeah. There are a few that will flip their switch and they want to fight, but I mean, you take 99 out of 100 guys in a bar, they'd probably rather come to a sexy, sounding girl than go fight some guy.
Right. But correct me if I'm wrong, I guess the one situation, or maybe not just the one, but one situation would be where the bugle might be successful if there's a big herd bull with 20 or 30 cows. Why would he leave 20 or 30 cows to go pick up one cow? So that challenge bugle, couldn't that work?
Absolutely, and so that's why... Yes, I think a phenomenal bugler can call in a lot of elk, and if they're a phenomenal cow caller and have that weapon of being a great bugler, they're deadly.
Yeah, that's a combination.
But how many times in the elk woods do you hear a person blow an elk bugle and go, "That's a person"?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How many times do you hear someone cow call and you look and go,
"Right,
that sounded pretty good"?
This is a hoochie mama.
Here's the reason why I think that happens. The bugle is a long call, and when you hear it, you can hear, and you hear inconsistencies. You hear, okay, that's a human.
Right.
You hear, yeah.
It's too
maybe
quick.
Twice. You need to hear it again to go, well, and then all of a sudden that guy over there goes, one time. You're like, maybe that is a cow. It's a shorter call, so you have a smaller time frame to hear it.
To criticize it.
It. And I think the elk are the same way.
Right.
I think the bugle that is taught on a lot of the videos and you hear on tournament stage, if you go out and blow that, an elk's going to be like, there was something in that 30-second call that didn't sound right. Whereas, that's such a short call.
Right.
So,
makes sense.
I mean,
it's hard to dissect that short cow call.
Exactly.
We've been successful with like young bull bugles.
Love it. Just a squeal. So I think you add in some cow calling, good cow calling and a bull bugles, and then if he thinks there's a little pipsqueak bull over there, that's the situation where I think bugling little small squeals of an insubordinate.
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to go over there and knock him out, take those cows and bring them on.
That's exactly how we try to do it.
Right. And I've heard guys, I want to sound like the biggest bull in the woods. I never want to sound like the biggest bull.
Scare everybody away.
Right. I mean, maybe in the one circumstance where you get in close to a herd bull that's really worked up and super aggressive and he's a fighter, maybe, but is he going to leave his group of gals over here to charge 100 yards over to you? Not most of the time.
Right.
So, do you guys find with your own calling, I mean, around here, what works for you the best?
We do a lot of whining. But that being said, on a general basis, we try to limit our calling, I think.
We do. But our mentor he would make a cow call like it was like, please come over here.
Like a pleading.
Yeah, like a whining beagle. We had a beagle dog, and he would whine, and the cow call sounded like a whining beagle, like, please come over and take me away.
Right.
And we learned from him. So I would always after that replicate that, and then I was just when I was first out there a lot, I was pleading please, somebody come over. And I'd always pull in.
I'm ready, willing, and able.
Yeah, and I'd always pull in some spikes and some cows with that. And then more recently, I would say it would be more watching you on your YouTubes. And Nicky said, Dad, this guy's the best.
I always said that.
And so
you did?
Yeah, I always said that because you always a lot of people go, ew.
Close their mouth.
They close their
and
mouth.
you open yours. So now, so
you were the
now
first person that I saw do that, and I was like, that is a game changer.
Right.
So
it is a game changer.
It'll be fun on our podcast with you. Hopefully that you'll do one with us.
For sure.
I want to hear you call.
Yeah.
I want you to hear us call. We can talk about the dynamics of communicating. Because I'm fascinated by that. And obviously watching you, the last 2 years we've been successful calling like you with that open mouth.
Yeah. I mean, if when I talk to guys, the single most important thing that I tell them that I see mistakes people make, and I believe Steve Chappell is the best cow caller in the world. I was partners with him for 10 years. I'm happy that I gave him one of the very first Primos pallet plates when they first came out, and he's like gone so far above and beyond what I do from being able to make every sound. I kind of have one sound and it works for me, but I tell people, open that mouth. Cow elk don't go, ew. They don't do that. They go, yeah, yeah. They open their mouth. If you watch them, you've got to get that sound of that nasally, and you've got to be opening your mouth. That's what works for me, and I've told lots of people, and they report back that that's helped them tons.
It's interesting, too, because I used to cow call a lot with a tube and a reed. But after watching you, I'm not using that tube as much.
So I think the tube kind of hollows it out, and it just doesn't sound as nasally to me. It takes away that nasally sound. Now I think you could use a small tube if you wanted to mix it up a little bit and sound like a couple different cows. But I mean, I don't know if you guys have gotten into the external, like the Steve Chappell's like Matriarch or Trophy Wife, the bite and blows, what I call. You can get pretty nasally on those, and I'll bring my calls up and we'll mess with them.
I feel like it's cheating if you have a mouth or like a whistle.
And it does work incredibly well, and it's definitely not the purest. But
They work, yeah.
It works, yeah, for sure. But I'm glad that tip helped you. It's helped. I've had so much response from people saying, you're the only person out there that's saying open your mouth.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm going to continue doing it because that's what works for me.
It just sounds the best.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know some people that can call out of the side of their mouth, but I feel like every person that I've tried to say, now do it and drop that lower jaw, they report back, I had more success this season than ever calling elk in. So I know it works.
Right. Yeah, that's a great tip.
Now, when was the last time you hunted public land?
That's a good question. The last elk tag now this is crazy, the last elk tag where I had personally and I shot a bull was 2005 in Arizona on public land. I had a Unit 10 tag. The same year in 2005, I also had a San Carlos tag.
Wow.
I bought a San Carlos tag 3 years in a row, 04, 05, and 06.
In the White Mountains on the reservation?
It's just, so the Black River separates the White Mountain from the San Carlos. The reason that I bought the San Carlos tag in 04 was because the season was 2 weeks long. It was actually 15 days long. So being an elk junkie, I wanted to spend as much time in the elk woods as I could where they were bugling chaos. And the San Carlos, you've been to the White Mountain. The San Carlos at the time, I don't know how it is now, was unreal. I mean, I would have 12 to 15 bulls every single day called in, maybe more. I mean, it could be as much as 20. Just chaos bugling.
And that's public land stuff.
No. That's the reservation.
Yeah.
The last public land tag, I have 18 points. I have to count it up in Arizona for elk. So I've been guiding. I don't, you guys hunt OTC and guys are like, well, when are you going to go do it for yourself? I love taking people out, and with the new thing on the ranch, I get to monitor elk basically during the rut from September 1 to October 15th. I'm out in the woods every single day. I run a string of 150 trail cameras. I'm listening to them bugle. I'm taking pictures of them, video them. I love elk.
Right.
I've kind of gotten to where I was in that stage where I just want to kill. I want to kill them. I love elk meat.
Yeah.
But now I've kind of graduated to I love taking video, pictures. I love calling them in. I love messing with them just as much as I like flinging an arrow at them.
Right.
It's the same thing with you and fishing.
Yeah.
And like in 2016, I drew probably one of the best elk tags in the state of Utah. I drew the beaver unit, and I went up there and had my friend Tony went up there and had a phenomenal hunt. I stayed with him and his family, and I went home without an elk. And he put me on a bull, and I chased him pretty much the whole time, and I had 2 encounters with him, and I should have killed him both times, and I didn't. I didn't get it done. I never flung an arrow.
But you were chasing the right guy.
I was chasing and the auction tag holder killed him, and he scored 411 inches, and I've kind of gotten to where if I'm going to shoot one, I want it to be a really good one. And there's nothing I like more than going to a place and trying to find the biggest animal there is. And once I find them, trying to figure them out and trying to kill them.
Let me ask you this, in that I'm not young enough to be able to have enough points to draw great units. I feel that certain units like Unit 10 and these units where it takes 20-some points to get, that's like private land, essentially.
It's a great hunt. Arizona public land is phenomenal.
If you can, but that's a tag that takes 20 years to get.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody like myself, people say, I have this little personal war. Well, I hunt public land and I killed this on Unit 10. To me, that is like private land.
Absolutely.
Because nobody else can hunt it.
Absolutely. Well, it's limited.
It's limited.
But the thing is,
but
it is.
But somebody has a connotation. Oh, you killed that on a ranch.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the difference? I mean, you've got a great ranch, and somebody can come to your ranch and kill a great bull, but somebody might demean that because it was killed on a ranch versus Unit 10. It takes 25 years, only 20 guys can hunt it. That's private. That's as private. So more so than your ranch.
The wrestling match between private and public and reservation, not reservation, I get the whole thing. I'm at the point now where it's like, I like elk.
Just leave me alone.
I like interactions.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
I think what it is it's a money thing.
You mean it's gotten to where, you only killed that because you had money?
Right.
I think that's what a lot of people believe. Yeah. And
there's a lot to that too.
And like Unit 10, if it's it's public land, it's just very hard to get.
Right.
You're not paying $15,000 for that tag.
Right.
You're paying 20 years of your life by drawing that. I think that's a money deal, as because if you say you hunt Dinosaur National Park, what is that, Unit 1 or Unit 10?
2 or 210. Yeah.
So, that's what, 22 years, 23 years putting in?
I'm going to be 90.
Yeah. Well, my
pushing your walker, blowing your bugle.
I think it's a money deal. People shame other people for paying $15,000 to $20,000 on a tag and killing a great bull.
So how do you feel about landowner tags?
Well, before I answer that one, I would say I don't know that it's any different than someone saying, well, yeah, but Andy goes down to Florida and he rents a house for a month and a half and he's on the water every day. And I would say, what's your point? He wakes up in the morning just like you do and puts on his pants and brushes his teeth just like you do. Right. You could go down and rent a house and fish.
Fish the same water.
The way I look at it is this, guys. It's people. If someone does something that's different, they want to knock someone down rather than say, you know what, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to go to the Keys for 6 weeks. You make priorities and you make decisions in your life that you say, I'm going to hunt private land elk every year for the rest of my life and public land, or I'm just going to hunt public. I think one of the things that's gotten in hunting and fishing is this, he does it that way, he's no good, or, discrediting. It would be like discrediting.
He
saying,
shoots a compound.
Andy's been able to fish with the best guides in the world, and, it's all a choice. He chose to do that.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Like I know guys that could kill elk on private, public. It doesn't matter. I know guys that couldn't kill an elk on public if they couldn't kill an elk on public. They could only kill them on private.
Right.
But who am I to say, oh, that bull that he shot's no good because he killed it on?
He had a guide on
Right.
a big ranch.
Right.
I mean,
if you're elderly and you have the money to spend
That's
on a
me.
great, and if you have the money to spend on a great piece of property with big animals and you get encounters every day, why not?
I always say, if you had the opportunity to hunt on a reservation or on a great private ranch, and you don't do it because you just want to hunt public land, more power to you.
Right.
But I would argue that most people that gripe about private land, if they had the opportunity, they'd do it in a heartbeat.
Right.
Right. I agree.
And I love elk. I love, whatever I hunt. I want to give myself the best opportunity I can, the most shots. It's like, why do you go to the Keys and fish for tarpon there when you could go to the Bahamas and there's probably another place where you could catch more tarpon.
Babies in
right.
Mexico.
You want to go where the biggest are, and
Right.
you've made sacrifices, for your time and your money. That's where you're going.
Right.
So be it.
Yeah.
And I think there'll always be people, and you guys have probably seen it in anything in life, that they're going to try and knock you down regardless. I don't pay attention to it.
Right.
It's
It's not worth the effort.
yeah. Life's short.
It's interesting in that this is a new world for us. Obviously, we've been a little bit successful, but do you find you don't hunt public land? But I find that in tarpon fishing, we've been down there now. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and it became the most important thing in my life for a big part of those 30 years. And over those 30 years now, I'm seeing so many boats. It's hard to get a spot. The fish are very finicky. It's really hard to catch them unless you're really, really good. And I see now a little bit of a problem with the bow hunting. It's become so popular that there are so many people out there not knowing what they're doing. They've never had mentors. Luckily, we've had mentors. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that we're really good, but we've been able to kill a few animals. But I see so many people out there that are just running around and on public land with not very many animals. That makes it so much more difficult. And who am I to be upset with that? I've got some buddies here like Ryan Smalls, who's been doing this for a long, long time. That guy should be upset knowing that it's kind of over a little bit.
Well,
do you see that in
absolutely.
the sport?
And that's one thing when I always try, and with the podcast and with my social media, I try and build up hunting and fishing and put it in as positive light as I can. And quite honestly, there's a lot of new people in the sport, and there's more people out in the woods, and it's just making it tougher. So, we've kind of created some of our own problem.
Right.
You with the tarpon fishing, you have a TV show, and you're trying to be the best you can be, but you're also filming it. It's brought a lot of great things to the sport. So I don't think in bow hunting we've gotten to the point where it's so overrun that it's now a total detriment, but it is something to think about of, we keep adding people in the woods, but then we hear stats that, hunters are, it's a dying deal.
Is it?
I think it is, yeah.
It's
It doesn't
funny.
feel like it in places like Aspen, Colorado, because you go, you hike 9 miles in on a trailhead, and you get there and you think, I got this place to myself, and you just look over the ridge and there's 3 tents down there. And
That's exactly what happened to us.
That's exactly, yeah.
And you're like, what the heck? And I think as time goes on, I think that's going to make private land and reservations and some of these things more valuable. I just think that's kind of the deal that's just what we're dealing with.
Right.
You're just going to have to go deeper, Andy.
He's like, oh, God. Well,
what are you getting out of your pocket?
I thought you were talking about deeper into the woods.
Yeah. Deeper. Go deeper. Guys, it's been awesome. It's fun to have kind of this common bond of hunting and fishing and all that. And you guys are both great golfers, too. I saw on your Instagram you guys like to play golf. Looks like you're a heck of a golfer.
I'm okay.
Who's better?
He is.
Who won today?
Well, he's a scratch golfer.
You're scratch.
He's a scratch.
Good
And
for you.
I'm still okay. I'm still, I'm a 3. I can still
Good
shoot
for
in
you
the
guys.
low 70s.
How much golf do you guys get in? I mean, is it something all year long you're playing?
I love golf. I had a par 3 in my backyard at one time. I absolutely love golf. I am fascinated by the game.
You too?
Yeah.
How often do you play now in the
I
summer?
don't play nearly as much in the summer here in Aspen as I do in Florida, just because there's so many other things to do, and I don't want to waste that much time playing golf. But we'll play at least twice a week because we're in a city match play tournament going on right now. We have men's league on Thursdays, but usually at least twice a week we're playing here in Aspen. In Florida, I'm a member of a great club, and I hate to say this, but it's a men-only golf club. I can probably get hammered. You might get hammered by it, but
Don't
you know
worry,
what? Here's
there's
my
about
contention.
3 women that listen to my podcast.
Here's my contention with a men-only golf club. You have a bunch of guys that have the same commonality. There are no homes in this golf course. There are no rules. You can use your cell phone. You can do exactly what you want. And I had this conversation one time. Martina Navratilova used to play a lot of golf. And so Martina and Billie Jean King were together, and we were at this event. And Martina asked me about golf. I said, I just joined this all-men's golf club. Oh, boy. I set myself up.
Yeah.
I got Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova going at me. I said, look, who cares if you want to start your own tennis club, and a prerequisite is you've got to be a serve and volleyer, you've got to be gay, and it's got to be grass courts. Who cares?
Yeah.
What's the difference? It is, and that's the beauty of this country and the fact that there is such a large amount of freedom of choice. And if you have private land and you want to go build a high fence ranch down there and bring in all these different animals for, to be killed, who cares?
Yeah. We do live in a great country.
Yeah.
I'll bet it was an extreme honor to represent our country and be an Olympian. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I would say that it became almost part of the norm at the time because you're so embedded in racing that was just another race. It was just the biggest race. I would say, after the fact, there's a lot of pride in that. And during when you're marching with your team in the Olympics and everybody's wearing, the flag and red, white, and blue, and there's only a handful of you representing your country, it's a very, very special thing for sure. Absolutely.
Do you think it's more special to you now than it was then, just because you have more perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate to do a bunch of different things, but I think one of my closest things that I look back on and relish is my relationship with President Bush, 41. He was a great friend. He was a friend of my ex-wives. My ex-wife, even though I have more than one particular ex-wife I'm talking about. Yeah, sorry about that. I've kind of gotten used to the S's at the end of that word. But, to have traveled and fished with him around the world for 20 years and be invited to the White House and to be at Camp David when Kuwait was invaded. He's being inducted into the Fishing Hall of Fame this year, and I'm the MC for the event. Having not only these sports as a big part of my life, but these people in these sports, like my son Nicky, my ex-wife Chrissy was awesome in so many ways. President Bush, traveled the world and do great things and be in a location that was a part of American history. I cherish that as much as the things that I've personally done. The people I've been with and the events that I was a part of.
That's awesome. Guys, it's been super fun today. I just want to thank you guys for inviting me up and want to just give you encouragement for you guys have already recorded some podcasts, and I'm so looking forward to watching you guys succeed and have fun with it. And there's so much real going on with what you're doing. There's so much realism, and you can tell you're both passionate about it. So it's awesome, and it's going to be exciting to see you guys flourish in yet another arena. And I just want you to know that I'm here to help you guys, and anything I can do to help you guys for sure. Any technical advice on the equipment or what have you. But it's super cool to kind of build a new friendship and a new bond of all the things that we like to do. And yeah, it was super cool to get the Instagram message from you, and now I feel like I've made 2 new friends. So
Well, we'll be talking about those landowner tags here shortly.
Yeah,
but
sure.
for sure, our friendship will precede all that.
Yeah, we'll push the pause button and get into the landowner tags. But no, I think why wouldn't you try and take some more opportunity and give yourself some better opportunity at some better hunts, and hunt some of these public land units where you can buy landowner tags and go every year and have your hunt planned out and do your OTC and do your landowner, and you've worked hard and should put yourself in a position to have more shots.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So
well, it's going to be great. Cultivating this relationship
For sure.
and friendship and getting to the woods and the river too.
Yeah, you guys will have to come down and play the little par 3 down there in Basalt with me.
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
That's my course right there. They don't let me on the big boy course anymore, but yeah, it was great. Just enjoyed hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Us too. Thank you.
Sounds good. God
You've
bless
been
you
an
both.
inspiration for a couple of years now. It's we're together
Well, good. Sounds good. Next time we'll blow some elk calls.
for sure.
All right.
Thanks,
Sounds
Jay.
good. Okay.